Hey now, Grizz here, and today I of course have another beautiful knife to look at from the past, but I also I have a secret agenda. Yeah, I'm really going to plug the fact that this week I was on a podcast with Steven from Patty's Potato Peelers. Patty is a friend of mine. He's kind of a mentor. I kind of like learned how to do this watching him do it. So between him and Tobias and Hobie, they're like the holy trinity of knife YouTube royalty, in my opinion. Big Red's up there too. And I'm not going to mention all of it. I went too far. Anyway, so Monday I was on a podcast with Patty, and his buddy Justin and Dan, and we talked about our sacks. We played with our sacks a little bit. We even showed our sacks to each other. I mean, it was a great time. And, we goofed around, and I probably talked way too much, as I'm doing now, because that's what I do. I kind of have diarrhea of the mouth. It's like whatever the gift of gab is, I've got the opposite of that. Anyway, this little guy is something I was really looking forward to. It's got me puzzled, though, and we'll talk about why in a second. But first, let's just take this thing in. I mean, these aged. I don't know. I think they appear to be real Stag to me. Sometimes it's tough, but especially when they get old, they can get really dark. They can absorb grease and stuff. So I think this is Stag. It might be jig bone. If it's jig bone, it's a really good job. And something to mention is the company. There might be a good reason why they're very good at jig bone. I'll leave it at that for right now. But we've got this nice inlaid shield. Like if I get this knife straightened out, I will totally get my initials imprinted into the shield. I think that would be bitchin'. This is just a perfect little gentleman's knife. It's even got the lobster file. Check out the nickel silver liners with the rolled or coined edges, whatever you want to call it. Very cool. And, for those of you who are a little slow, the coined edges are called such because they look like the edges of like a dime or something like that. If you get, especially an old silver dime, from like pre-1964 or something like that, those old silver dimes, the edges look just like this. And it's the same process, to roll the edge of coins, which is done for texture, or roll these liners, which is done for decoration. Maybe it might give you a little more grip too. I mean, it's like a decoration that might help, but if not, if it doesn't help, it's still cool. It's got these little tiny, I love these little tiny bolsters on these old knives. This trend like disappeared, but basically, from what I see, which I'm sure somebody can correct me, but this seems to disappear largely after World War II. It just seems like they either have full bolsters or no bolsters. And what are the points of bolsters? Well, it's because these old natural handled scales, if you drop them and they landed on the edge, which they tend to do, which is bust the scale up. So the bolsters are there to protect the covers, which is what we call these when they have bolsters, they're covers. When they don't have bolsters, they're scales. And sometimes when they don't have bolsters, or when they do have bolsters, they're still scales. So I hope that is nice and confusing, because it's supposed to be. That's how knife culture works. It's about making everything as obscure and difficult to figure out as possible so that everybody can feel like they're in a secret private club. And it feels pretty good too. But man, this is like such a thrilling looking. I just love the rugged look of this knife. It's killer. And it's in great shape, aside from the obvious fact that the pen blade is sticking up. So let's get right to that. Notice it's got a little dimple there for the pen blade. Now, if you know about these little lobster knives, let me break out another one here. This is one of my absolute treasures. And most people look at these and don't even give them a second thought. But man, this is such a cool one. The Wester Brothers, Germany. I've shared this many times. It's got the back file. But what is important about when they have a tool on this end and a back file, if there was no blade here, this would be a whole different ballgame. Because there's a blade here to make the blade and the file work off the both end, there's actually a split spring. So the spring is basically has a slot cut down the middle, and then the two pieces left on the outsides can both flex towards the inside. Basically, it makes the spring be able to work both ways, and either can work independently or at the same time without interfering at each other. The seller advised that, he showed the pictures like this, that it didn't close right. He said the springs were not broken. He thinks something's stuck in the springs or something. I don't know what's going on here. I did try to clear out in here, because if there was something like a bunch of dirt packed into this slot, the springs wouldn't, give way enough to make the knife work properly. What I'm leaning towards is that I think this thing was stored on display for many years. Like something like this or something like that. And what happens with spring steel is if you keep it in under tension for a long time, which if you know how these knives work, the springs are under tension anytime the knife is anywhere except fully open and fully closed. So the whole time it's out here, and sometimes at a half stop. If it's got a hard half stop, then it's basically relaxed then. But anytime it's at any angle other than 0 or 180 degrees, basically, the spring is under tension. So if you store a knife for a long time with the blade on an angle, it won't always happen. It generally doesn't happen, but it can happen, and this is a case of it, I believe, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with this knife. It's all original. All the parts line up. I'll show you the stamps in a second. But I believe that the spring has been, basically trained to stay in this relaxed position, which while this blade is up like this, the spring is pushed down at this end, but actually kind of humping up in here. And that's what creates the angle, because the spring doesn't bend in sharp points. It kind of bends on a long radius along the length of the spring from this pin all the way down to here. So you got to imagine a bowed curve like this. And basically that spring got trained to stay in that curve rather than relax flat. So what I'm going to do is my first attempt, I'm going to try something very non-invasive. I'm basically going to clamp this thing down and tape the crap out of it, clamp it down really hard, as tight as it'll go, and just leave it there for 2 weeks or something like that. And I'm going to then take it out of the clamp, look at it, and if the I know, fascinating, right? And if I see that there's any motion, because I'm going to mark this with a Sharpie, so even if it relaxes a little bit, and seems to want to stay a little lower, I'll be able to tell, because now the marker will be slightly below the scale, the liner. And then if I see that, I will clamp it back down and just leave it for 3 months. I will literally just put it in a drawer. I've got hundreds of other knives to play with. I'll forget this thing even exists. And then one day I'll go looking for something. I'll find it, and just maybe it'll be straight. If that time comes and this doesn't straighten out, because I do plan on using this knife, I will go full on surgical on this bad boy. And my next move, and this isn't because a lot of times if the blades stick up, it's because the blade has worn down and the tip has moved back and up, and you can either adjust the tip or you can adjust the kick. A lot of knives have an extra piece of metal that sticks up here for that reason. You can adjust that and tune where the blade sits in the knife. With a grinder, obviously, one-way adjustments. There's no putting it back unless you want to weld something on there. But, I forgot where I was going with that totally. So what I will do is remove some material. I'll reshape the tang in this area. So basically, instead of, this tang should be down like this flat, but I'll get it so that the tang is angling back like this, and that will let the basically it'll be sloping from here and upwards that way. And that will help get it. I mean, it might only take like a millimeter of material to remove. That's my first attempt. Second will be full on invasive surgery, drill the pin out, take the thing out, do some grinding, do some tweaking, whatever I got to do, and get it working, because this knife's too much of a prize to just let waste away. So let's check out these stamps while I got this blade out now. We've got RC Co. So that obviously is Robeson Cutlery Company. I think I just looked at the chart earlier while I was looking at this knife. It was, I think they used this from like 1900 to 1929 or something like that, or 1939 maybe. It's something like that. But this, I think this knife is in like the mid-20s, or the 30s. It could be anywhere between like 1920 and 1939 probably. Maybe towards the earlier end of that, but that's completely subjective. Then we've got this guy. This is a lovely little main blade. And if you notice something, this knife has pretty extreme downward cant on the blades. Even this blade, I mean, you'd have to turn around like this, but you see, that is the blade fully opened. There's nothing wrong with the knife. That's just how it was designed to be. Why? Well, if you do got these tiny blades, you can still get to a flat surface without your fingers hitting the table first. It's just it's just an ergonomic thing. It doesn't help with appearance. Actually, this knife, I think, looks just fine with it. Some knives, I hate when they lean forward. I always hate when they lean back, meaning they just go past 180 degrees. That's a big turnoff. No, no, no. I will definitely kick her out of bed. But yeah, the Robeson ShurEdge, Rochester, New York, 33377. And just based on looking at the tank stamp chart, I guess Robeson we started out making stuff in England, in Sheffield, because there's Robeson Sheffield stuff. If I recall, they might be related somehow to Roger Sheffield, which is the namesake of Roger's jigged bone, which is maybe this is just really nice jigged bone. I think that it's got, it looks like really, it just looks like old Stag to me, but it could be bone. It's so hard to tell with this stuff sometimes. Some pieces, some examples are just so on the edge, it's like impossible to tell without the way I could, you can't, it's hard to tell between bone. It's easy to tell between like a natural material and a synthetic material. You could literally just use a pinhead, get it red hot, and find a little hidden spot or already damaged spot and just touch it with the pin. And if it burns and smells like burnt hair, it's a natural material. If it burns and smells like plastic, then it's plastic. If it smells like glue, it could be something like G10, if it smells like epoxy or, chemicals and stuff, then you probably got some like composite material that's held together, bonded with an epoxy. Here we've got the, this is a long video for a little knife, 33377. I take that as the part number. I'm sure something is a code for it being 3 blades, and something else is a code for it having a, who knows. I'm sure there's a code in there for bone scales, or it could just be completely nonsensical, like some knife companies' serial numbering or model number systems. But it always breaks my heart when a knife is so close. I mean, this thing is so beautiful. The blades are fully intact. I love this delicate little pen blade. I mean, it's almost like cute. It's like not, it's totally useful, but I mean, it's just, most people see a tiny blade like this and go, what am I going to do with that? It's like, you know what cut stuff? The sharp edge. Everything past the sharp edge is just, reinforcement. Like, if you're cutting a delicate material like opening letters or sharpening a pen, you don't need a big bulky blade for it. Basically a 1-inch long edge is going to do the same job whether the blade's a 1/4 of an inch high or tall or an inch tall. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this little Robeson ShurEdge. Let's take a second look at this guy, man. Oh, what a stunner. And this, I'm pretty sure, is like the 1920s. Again, rolled nickel silver liners. Oh, we forgot something here, didn't I? I always get away from myself. Actually, I did it on purpose. I like teasing people. We've got this lovely lobster nail file. I really like this extra attention to detail here. Carving this little bevel into it and then doing the lines in it. That's just fantastic. I mean, such a tiny tool, and to put that much detail in it. Obviously, this thing's all carbon steel. It's got a lovely patina to it. You know, no rust or pitting, just that dark color that just comes with time. And yeah, it's got a nice file, and it's got this bonus slotted file on the side, which is great because your fingernail kind of rides in it. It's great for doing the corners of the nails where they just want to keep popping off the file, especially these narrow ones. So back to the Westerburgs. Man, this one has such a great blade shape. It's almost a drop point. It's got the, you know, Swedge going on. I just totally had a brain fart and forgot what a Swedge is. I mean, knife card revoked, please. The Westerburgs Germany stamp. Nothing on the back. Does got this crack here. That's a shame, but the fact that these scales exist after 100 years is amazing in and of itself. We've got another lobster nail file. And interesting to see how different the design is, you know, of this one compared to this one. There's just so many subtle little variations between different manufacturers, different countries, different periods. It's amazing. And man, and this one's really cool. It's got the corkscrew. I'm not showing you that. Beautiful nickel silver liners. This one's the cool one that's got the little spoon, party spoon in it. Although it's a small party. Actually, it's for picking your ears with. And a tortoiseshell toothpick. Lovely. And that, yes, that's like actual natural tortoiseshell. This is very delicate. I would never consider using this. I would just break it. Yes, before like the advent of plastics and polyvinyls and stuff in the 40s and 50s, like most day-to-day objects like combs, mirrors, hairbrushes, toothpicks, anything, toothbrushes could be made out of tortoiseshell. It was like the plastic of nature, basically. And it's got a beautiful set of excellent. These are great cutting scissors. I mean, they're a spitting image of Victorinox scissors, but I mean, no surprise there. These guys kind of they were at the party early. Let's just say that. Lovely pen blade. And notice this one even has a downward cant. This is one of the few of these types of knives I got. This tells you that, like, these knives, these pen blades never have any snap to them. I mean, never. It's just by the design of the springs. Those springs are not as strong because they're slotted. If you can see what I mean. See, like, inside there, you see there's a spring for the top tool, a spring for the bottom tool. They're actually just one spring cut in half. And but this is one of the only ones I've ever seen where this spring actually just snaps like a normal pocket knife. Very cool. Very cool. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll remind you one last time to go check out Patty's Potato Peelers. And while you're at it, go check out Mark Kaufman. And go check out Slick Slicers and Jersey Knife Guy and all these great channels that don't need my help, but they're just the channels I enjoy watching. Of course, you know, Hobie, Tobias, Patty, you guys are the best. Thank you. And I will see you on the next one. Petey Grizz out.